Welcome to Waterford Property Watch. I'm absolutely delighted to have this super guest, Nick Borgman of Borgman Earls Estate Agents in Dublin. Did I say that correctly?
You did, Regina. It's a bit of a mouthful, but you got that.
Great. So I met Nick on LinkedIn a number of years ago, and it's absolutely wonderful to have you here in Waterford, drinking good old Waterford Coffee House Lane. We love to give a nod to a local business.
Absolutely, cheers.
You were commenting on how good the coffee was.
The coffee's fabulous, Regina. And I drink a lot of coffee, so I consider myself a connoisseur.
Oh, very nice.
So, no, it's a long way to travel, but it's worth it for the coffee.
And it's a great thing in our business to connect with other agents and share good practice, what's going on in the market. And we've had great sharings all morning, haven't we?
We have. It's been really, really useful and valuable. And I suppose, you know, my visit to you today, and thank you very much for the warm welcome you've given me. It's great to meet you in person and the team.
Paid me to fall to.
Which has been fantastic for me to, I suppose, dip into a little bit of what your business is about, how my business looks alongside yours, how I can make improvements, how we can learn from each other, and I think that's been really useful. It's been a great trip. I'm delighted to have come down.
The start of a great business relationship and friendship.
So. Absolutely.
And look, at the end of the day, we do the same thing, which is help people move.
That's it. It's all about the people.
Helping people move. And with that in mind, we want to have a little chat today and share our own experiences with dealing with the whole issue of rightsizing, downsizing, which is very topical at the moment. I was going to say typical, but topical.
Yes.
It's in all the media. And we were chatting earlier and sharing some really nice stories and difficulties that our buyers are experiencing. So first off, I'm going to start by asking you, what are your thoughts, Nick, on the whole government conversation around easing planning permission for modular buildings within people's grounds of their homes? I know there's a criteria of 40 square metres.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is going to be helpful to the whole housing crisis?
I think it's not going to solve the housing crisis on its own, but I do think it is a positive step forward that will help free up some properties. Now, I think obviously, looking at the detail of this, there will be criteria that will have to be met. I think easing planning, so somebody who wishes to stay within the grounds of their own property and allowing themselves to build a structure, a modular home, is a great idea. It makes the downsizing move for somebody very straightforward, far less stressful. They're staying somewhere familiar. I do think that there would have to be obviously more discussion around it in terms of the likelihood of objections and things like that may come from neighbours. But I think if it's detailed in the right way, and the devil is always in the detail, Regina. We know that when it comes to government policy and what is brought out as legislation. I think it's definitely something that would help, and I think we should, as agents looking after the clients that we look after, it's something we should get behind and run with. Your thoughts on that?
I think some practical ideas around it. It's very much on my own radar because my parents are in their mid-80s.
Right.
And they live in a bungalow. Now, they moved from County Limerick, an old farmhouse in County Limerick, which needed loads of work.
Right.
They didn't have the money or the resources to actually do the work.
Okay.
So I got them to move to Dungarvan, which is only 10 minutes from our home. And how we navigated that journey was I actually took out a mortgage.
Wow, okay.
Myself. We then put the house on the market that they were living in after they moved.
Okay, right.
Found them a beautiful little bungalow.
Lovely.
And I just think that the whole process of moving is very daunting for people in their autumn years.
Well, if I can just say what you've described there is such a process. And not very straightforward. There's a lot of different factors and dots to be joined to make that happen. And not everybody would be in the position that you were in as a family to finance that type of move without selling the property first. So
yeah, absolutely. I think though it's to work on a solution focused mindset is what we need government and all the stakeholders to do. And maybe this is where the modular home on the grounds come in. Maybe the older person would move into the modular home. Maybe the adult children would move into the family home, or when that person moves into the modular home, maybe they rent out the family home and they get an income. Yeah. There's options there, and I think it's a positive discussion. Yes. In terms of, though, back to right-sizing, downsizing for people in their autumn years, I think the big issue is that people have to sell in order to buy in the main. And Daft gave a statistic that 48% of buyers have to sell a home first. Yeah. You were telling me some really lovely stories, Nick, about two sellers that you helped and how they navigated the journey with you. Absolutely. And it is a case that people are trapped in a way until they release the equity from their own home in order to buy their next property, which will ultimately be their downsize or their right size. And that creates the big question as to, do I put my house on the market first, or do I find something first? Well, if you need to obviously make that next purchase by funds from your own property, you need to be a step forward with the sale on your own. It's a daunting position to be in, but there are solutions then that come around that. And we've had that recently with a couple of examples. A lot of people who are downsizing at the moment are finding themselves very much in competition, unfortunately, with other cohorts of buyers in the market for the same type of property. So first-time buyers, for example, would be looking at the same smaller homes, smaller houses, good quality apartments, and people downsizing are now faced with having to compete with a large audience, in terms of the same properties. Now, we had one particular apartment, beautiful development, huge amount of interest in it, a number of bidders. One was a lovely couple looking to downsize. The lady's name was Breda. She was a lovely lady, and her daughter came with them to the viewings, step by step, all the time. And they basically held the parents' hand through the whole process, as did we, in terms of trying to assist as best we could. And what we then found was that we had a vendor of the property we were selling who was also on board with that. So we were very fortunate that vendors are not always looking at who is going to pay ultimately the best price. Money does come into it. But a lot of vendors would also look at the profile of the potential buyer of their property. They liked the story of the couple looking to downsize, to stay in the area where they just sold their family home. They knew that the couple, were ingrained in the social activities and in the local community, and they felt they would be a great fit for their apartment. So, it was a nice story to see that actually happened, and there were people out there who took into consideration the profile as well as the money. I love that story, because I think also big credit to you, Nick, because you're an independent agent and you take great pride in what you do. And so obviously your communication was really important here, and that connection you had with your seller who trusted you. Yeah. And then in the end, it was a great ending and just loads of happiness all around. Because sometimes us estate agents get a best rap. And, we do, absolutely. No, and it's nice. I mean, we said it at the very start. It's about people as much as the property that we're transacting. It's all about the people who are behind the property, the stories that are there. We had a lovely example recently as well of a lovely lady, Valerie's her name, and she was looking to downsize. She had a beautiful apartment in the centre of Dublin, and she had to sell this apartment in order to go and fund her purchase. She put the property up for sale. She managed to go sale agreed on her own property very quickly.
which is a great result in the grand scheme of things. But for Valerie, this put her under a little bit of pressure because now she had to find something to complete the chain. So as her sale was progressing, she was actively looking. She came across one of our properties that we were selling, which was the perfect fit. Now, her sale actually closed before she went sale agreed on the property we had, but she came to a solution with her buyers that they would offer her what was called a caretaker arrangement, which basically has allowed Valerie to stay in her own property after the sale had closed as a tenant on an arrangement where for the next few months she would be paying rent, but it's taken the pressure off her then with the time frame to close on this particular sale. And as it happens, we've been able to draw it together so that she will only now be able to just need to move more once. She can move from her home where she's now renting, her previous home, into the new property, and doesn't have to step somewhere in between and move twice. So that's another great story, Regina, of solutions that are out there where agents, and I know you're very much into this yourself, take a look at the personal side of people and the transactions that are there and like to make these stories happen.
Absolutely. These are real stories, real people. And I think as I'm listening to you, I just think it's so important for sellers to understand that doctors differ, patients die.
Yes.
And it is the same when you hire your solicitor and when you hire your estate agent. You want a solicitor who's solution focused, who helps on getting a great outcome. And you want an estate agent who is motivated to get that happy ending for everybody.
Absolutely.
And that can join up the dots and think outside the box.
Yeah.
And I'd love to share a quick story about Anna.
Right.
And Anna basically hired me to sell her home in rural West Waterford. And her husband is blind the last 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And he's in his mid to late 80s. And Danny is his name. And I know Anna is very open about the story, so I'm not speaking out of turn.
Okay.
But she needed to sell because she needed to be closer to her adult children in Waterford City, because they needed to be near a hospital, but they didn't have a house. And they needed a house with a downstairs bedroom and a shower. Very, very stressful. We sale agreed it quickly, got lovely buyer, but we had to keep the buyer warm while we found another property for Anna and Danny. And we persuaded one of our landlords to sell his rental property ahead of his target.
Wow.
He wasn't planning on selling it for another 6 months. And we said, look, will you let us sell this house in advance? And we had to find a home for the tenants, which my colleague John Darcy did on Christmas Day.
Wow.
By collaborating with another estate agent.
Yeah.
So the collaboration with the other estate agent, we were able to move the tenants from that house into another rental property. He negotiated that on Christmas Day. And then we were able to agree the sale for Danny and Anna in this rental property that we had, which they purchased off market. So it's all about finding solutions.
It is. It's finding solutions, and it's bringing the right people together. A little bit of thinking outside the box,
for sure.
Which, I think, with the experience we have, we're able to see maybe alternatives that other people haven't looked at. But there is always a solution. It's just a matter of finding it. Mostly.
Everything is fixable bar death, in my view.
That's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe we should wrap it up on that happy ending.
Yes.
They're lovely stories. It's a difficult journey to navigate if you're looking at downsizing, but where there's a will, there is a way.
Always a way.
I'd like to finish up by saying, Nick, all the best. We look forward to welcoming you back to Waterford. Waterford's voted Ireland's best place to live.
I've heard that on many occasions. Regina, and a lot from you, actually. You're a great sponsor of the county that you live in.
Up the data, we're very proud.
Absolutely. I'm delighted to be here today.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks for watching. Gurv Míle Magat. And you might sign up to our YouTube channel. We'll put a link below the post on social media. Thanks a million. Slán go fóill.